Once upon a time, in a kingdom far away, lived a princess named Snow White. Her beauty was envied by the queen, her stepmother. "Mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" the queen commanded. The magic mirror replied mysteriously, "My queen, you are fair, 'tis true, but Snow White is fairer than you." Furious, the queen shouted, "Guards! I want Snow White taken into the woods and killed, and as proof of her death, bring me her heart." Enraged by the mirror's words, the queen ordered a huntsman to take Snow White into the woods and kill her. Remorsefully, the huntsman said, "I can't do it, princess. The queen has ordered me to kill you, but I can't bring myself to harm such innocence. What shall I do? Where can I go?" Snow White asked, frightened. "Run, princess, run far away and never return. Hide in the woods where the queen will never find you," the huntsman urged. The huntsman, unable to carry out the queen's evil request, warned Snow White and urged her to flee into the forest. Snow White, lost and afraid, wandered deeper and deeper into the woods until she came across a quaint little cottage. Hesitantly, she called out, "Hello, is anyone here?" Finding the cottage empty and exhausted, Snow White fell asleep across one of the tiny beds. Doc, surprised, exclaimed, "What's this? Someone's been in our house." Grumpy angrily added, "Probably some beast. Get your axes ready." As the dwarfs entered their cottage, they found it in disarray. Fearing an intruder, they crept forward cautiously. Happy, delighted, said, "Why, she's beautiful." Sleepy added sleepily, "Let her sleep." Doc, concerned, remarked, "We can't just leave her here. We must find out who she is." The dwarfs were amazed by Snow White's beauty, and after a brief discussion, they decided to let her stay. Gratefully, Snow White said, "Thank you for taking me in. My name is Snow White, and I'm hiding from the queen." Doc warned, "You can stay here with us, princess, but be careful. The queen is a powerful sorceress." Snow White told the dwarfs her story, and they agreed to protect her, warning her of the queen's dark magic. Impatiently, the queen asked, "Mirror, mirror, on the wall, who is the fairest of them all?" The magic mirror, knowing, replied, "My queen, you are fair, 'tis true. But Snow White still lives, fairer than you. She lives in the forest with the 7 dwarfs." Furious, the queen exclaimed, "What? The huntsman deceived me, but I will deal with Snow White myself." Discovering that Snow White was still alive, the queen flew into a rage and vowed to eliminate her herself. Using her dark magic, the queen disguised herself as an old peddler woman and created a poisoned apple so potent that even one bite would bring eternal sleep. Sweetly, the peddler woman, who was actually the queen, said, "Apples, dearie, lovely red apples." Hesitant, Snow White replied, "We are not supposed to open the door to strangers." Persuasively, the peddler woman, the queen, said, "Oh, just a bite, dearie, a simple bite of this delicious apple." When the dwarfs were away, the queen, disguised as a peddler woman, arrived at the cottage, tricking Snow White into opening the door. Snow White, weak, gasped, "Oh." Triumphantly, the peddler woman, the queen, declared, "Now you'll never be the fairest in the land." Snow White, tempted by the apple's beauty, took a bite and immediately fell into a death-like sleep. Grief-stricken, Grumpy cried, "Snow White, what has happened?" Panicked, Doc exclaimed, "She's not breathing." The dwarfs returned to find Snow White lifeless on the floor. Heartbroken, they placed her in a glass coffin in the woods. Time passed, and one day, a handsome prince was traveling through the forest. He came across the clearing where the dwarfs had placed Snow White's glass coffin. Amazed, the prince said, "She is the most beautiful woman I have ever seen." Captivated by her beauty, the prince approached the dwarfs and inquired about the maiden in the coffin. Moved by her plight, the prince leaned down and kissed Snow White. The spell was broken. Confused, Snow White asked, What happened?" Gently, the prince explained, "You have been asleep, my dear, but you are safe now." Snow White awoke, and the prince explained what had happened. Filled with joy, they decided to marry. Snow White and the prince were married in a grand ceremony, and they lived happily ever after.